So, if you loved Emerald Fennell's Oscar-winning film Promising Young Woman, you're in for a treat right now. Saltburn takes us back into the early 2000s to the bad old days of juicy tracksuits and Abercrombie polo shirts. We meet Oliver, an Oxford University student played by Barry Keoghan, who becomes infatuated with his super posh schoolmate Felix, played by Jacob Elordi. When Felix invites Oliver to his family's estate, Saltburn, things get very interesting indeed. So now let's please welcome to the stage writer and director Emerald Fennell, casting director Carmel Cochran, production designer Susie Davies, and editor Victoria Boydell. So I was really curious about when you came to the idea of doing this. And also, I know when we talked about Promising Young Woman, you said it had come to you kind of in a complete package. So tell us about what came, when, how, what was your vision?
It's always so hard to say because it sort of kind of creeps up on you sometimes. For me, the first thing that was Saltburn, which was really probably 6 or 7 years ago now, was a boy licking the inside of a bathtub. And yeah, sometimes you have these sort of very specific things in it. Yes, it just immediately I thought, oh, you know, that's...
This is something you saw for real?
No.
It's like, why would that enter your head?
In my mind. I didn't walk in and say, sorry, Dad.
So you just randomly
No, No, it just came, Oliver kind of came into my mind, and I suppose two things came into my mind. It was I wasn't in love with him. Somebody saying I wasn't in love with him, and then licking the inside of the bathtub, and I thought, well, this is somebody, you know, I like this person already because they're insane with desire and they're a liar, you know, and that's kind of, so, yeah, I wanted to make something about desire and about our kind of very complicated relationship with the things that we want, really want, and can't have and will never have us back. And I suppose that, you know, I wasn't in love with him already announces itself as a kind of Gothic country house moment because it's that sort of go-between brideshead atonement, looking back over a time of your life that just destroyed you, I guess.
And, you know, it's so much about being an outsider looking in, and I think it kind of speaks to the world we live in now, where there's a lot of kind of, you know, this idea of what we see on social media looking so perfect, and actually underneath it's not what it appears at all. And you really explore this kind of, what will we do to be included in the upper echelons, as it were?
And what does that do to us, and how does it make us feel? Because I suppose the thing is that I myself, and I think like lots of us now more than ever, are kind of riven with this kind of strange wanting, because we're sort of exposed to everything all the time, and so the level of kind of constant wanting of, you know, expensive clothes and holidays and handbags and food and interior design and people, and then what you see increasingly is you have this kind of really fascinating thing that I think happens to a lot of us, which is that we want something, we're sort of disgusted with ourselves for wanting it, and then that self-disgust becomes a hatred of the thing itself too. But the thing itself is always kind of impervious because it never looks back at you. So I suppose I wanted to kind of take that to its kind of natural conclusion of like, well, how do you make it look? You have to kind of destroy it, really.
Yeah, that's like the definition of envy, right? So what Oliver's experiencing is classic envy. I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but he comes to, you know...
God, I'm assuming everyone had seen. Sorry, spoiler alert.
Well, spoiler alert, sort of, yeah, we'll just carry on regardless. But yeah, Oliver experiences a kind of resentment in a way to what the thing that he desires so much. Is that what you think?
I think it's hard to know sometimes where one thing stops and one thing ends. And I'm kind of very, Catherine Brie said that kind of sexual tension isn't between people, it's between beauty and ugliness. And that beauty thrives on revulsion. And I think there's always, when you're kind of gripped by something completely overwhelming, kind of otherworldly desire, there's this element of revulsion, whether it's yourself or the person, it's a sort of, it's not straightforward. The kind of Gothic love, I guess, that this film is dealing with, or, Wuthering Heights, or many of these kind of things in this tradition, it's much more complicated than just loving someone.
Let's talk about casting, because the cast in this film is just phenomenal, and everyone seems so perfectly cast. You've got Richard E. Grant and Rosamund Pike as the kind of detached, avoidant, out-to-lunch parents, but also just really sharp at the same time. They're brilliant. And obviously Barry and Jacob, and there's just absolutely amazing cast. And then Carey, reunited with Carey Mulligan in that orange wig as Pamela. Carmel, talk to us a little bit about the casting process and how it all came together.
Well, I read the script on a train on the way home and jumped on a Zoom with Emerald, and I just remember being obsessed. And I think we spoke for about 2 hours. I read it very much feeling like an Oliver, and I just really understood the world. And then in the casting process, it was amazing having Emerald as an actor, and you just knew exactly what you wanted. But was open to collaboration and open to seeing new people who hadn't done anything at the time. It was great. It was a really, really fun, wonderful process.
Who came on board first, and what were those sort of early conversations like?
Barry came on first. I think he was the only person we discussed in true, we want him to do it. And then we built the world around him.
Susie, I adore what you did here. And I know Emerald has a very complete vision, so I'm curious about that. Again, the conversations you had together in the beginning. But I just want to say that scene that we just saw is a perfect example where you just got it so right. They have mismatched furniture and the walls are crammed with the family art. And it's kind of like the sitting room in posh houses where everyone lives in one room and they don't use the rest of the house. I love what you did. Tell us how it came together.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for your kind words. That room did really bring together our intention to ride almost sleazy, almost tacky, but effortlessly stylish. This family have the money and they have the staff to dress those rooms, because I think they would just walk out of that room, leave the overflowing Lalique ashtrays, leave the slops of the gin and tonic in the dog bowl, all of that sort of stuff. So it was about just riding that fine line between sleaze and style.
And I watched a Q&A with Emerald a couple of weeks ago in LA, and you were talking about Caravaggio, right, as being an inspiration. So how did you and Susie discuss that and make that come to life as your inspiration?
Well, I think so much of that is to do with colour, and the use of colour in this, and the kind of... So we were looking at... And not just colour, actually, but texture, the way that light hits certain textures, velvets and silks, and kind of... Susie used a lot of kind of really beautiful kind of needlepoint, and there's so much faux fur. It's a kind of like tactile world, and so there's that side of things that feels kind of grubby but alive. And then, you know, and then it's kind of with leanness, we're looking at kind of the way we light things and the way we frame things. Obviously, in the 1:3 ratio makes it much easier to kind of make more painterly, like mise en scene. And but we were always careful that, like, for every beautiful kind of theatrical setup, you know, there's a scene in a drawing room which is the most kind of, I suppose, artful and old-fashioned formal composition, but it's lit by a karaoke machine. And, you know, and then, you know, so much of what Susie and her team do is, you know, we go into the most beautiful rooms in the world and we said, yes, but where's the shit? Where's the shit? Where's the true shit of people's lives, actually? Because that has to live here too. And that's what they're just so amazing at, not just making things that are beautiful, but kind of understanding that there's sort of, they exist in a kind of human way.
Like the gin and tonic slops in the Lalique ashtray.
Absolutely. And that was the fun part of this whole process, is adding those details. We had the broad, bold scale of particularly Saltburn and that fantastic house, but it was all the little details that were just as important.
Victoria, your work really struck me when I saw this because, and actually I remember coming out of the film and having a conversation with someone about this very thing, that there's a couple, I don't want to ruin it, but there's a couple of scenes that are, shall we say, hard to watch in some, you know, they're sort of extremely awkward feeling. And instead of cutting away, it's a lean-in situation where we stay on that scene for, you know, longer than is comfortable. And that's obviously a very specific choice. And I'm really interested in that and what you and Emerald talked about in terms of editing. And tell us also about some of the trickiest parts of the job.
No, I mean, it was a fascinating process because it felt to me like Emerald and I had a sort of crackling conversation over many months. That the journey of the film, cutting it, was we sort of our brains moved kind of like quicksilver because Emerald's obviously brilliantly sharp and creative. So, I mean, in terms of that specific question about the lengths of some of those shots, over many months we talked about, I mean, very specifically about a second longer, a second shorter, about coming out on this moment or this moment, and how it affected all the scenes around it and affected Oliver's journey. So nothing happened in let's just try that and leave it like that because we sort of haven't had another look at it. Everything is thought about and everything was tried and tested, which meant that in the middle, there were times in the middle of the process when we probably didn't know whether we were at the beginning of the middle or close to the end until, because of the way we enjoyed exploring ideas that might settle for a week or 10 days, and then we'd be like, I think there's another way of doing this. We want to have Oliver go on this journey, or we want him to be more of a victim of this moment with the family. So then we'd unpick that and try something else. But I mean, I loved every minute of it because I trusted that we would find our way and that it was a great journey anyway. And as I say, a cracking conversation to have.
Well, I really enjoy that, and I think it's a real standout factor that just when you think you're being taken on this really enjoyable, funny ride, it's, oh no, we're going to go look at something really weird, really close up.
Well, I mean, that's when I saw Promising Young Woman, obviously, the humour in the darkness, the twisted humour. When I heard Emerald was making a second film, I said, I'm going to chew off my right arm to cut that film. Trouble is, I'm right-handed, so it was really slow trying to cut with this hand.
So I do want to give a shout out to Sophie Canale, the costume designer, who wanted to be here but couldn't today. Emerald, can you speak to her genius a little bit? I know on my intro I talked a little bit about the weird 90s, I mean not 90s, noughties clothes that probably we'd prefer to forget, but it's hilarious seeing them in action. Tell us what went into her work.
Oh, I mean, so much. And I think also costume and hair and makeup working together as a really kind of amazing team. I mean, it's the same with every department. The thing about 15 years ago or 17 years ago now is that it's wherever you are in history, it's mortifying. It was really important, not just for the kind of classic framing narrative of the movie, but that, again, it's humanizing to have the most beautiful people in the world are fallible. They still have, dodgy extensions. They still have Carhartt bootcut jeans frayed at the bottom. They still have a T-shirt that says "What happens in Cassiope stays in Cassiope." In Comic Sans, it's the thing. It's the opportunity. Yes, these people are beautiful. Yes, they have money. Yes, they have access to, whatever they want. Frankly, I mean, there are moments when, Sophie and the team, we were kind of talking a lot about the fact that, Venetia's probably walking in shows in London, and so we had kind of Christopher Kane lent us kindly his first runway pieces, for poor dear Pamela to wear at breakfast, because of course she would. And there's that side of things, of course, but more importantly, sometimes is the dodgy stuff, making Felix, look kind of a little bit like what he is, which is sort of a bit of a doofus, really. And so it's always that balance with everyone of, sleaze and kind of sex appeal, as Susie said. And yeah, they were remarkable, but it's a joy when you're so specific. When I first spoke to Sophie on Zoom, lots of people were amazing that I met, and they had the most beautiful, unbelievable mood boards, and we discussed the clothes at the time. And Sophie was like, she just went to Facebook and saw all of her old university pictures, and she just put those up, and they were devastating. And she was like, the thing is, do you remember there was a point when boys were wearing 2 polo shirts and with both collars popped? And I was like, you're in. Come. Because that's it. It's that level of kind of cringe detail. It's the tiny scarf. The tiny thin scarf, You can't, there's no getting around that.
The many, many bracelets.
Oh my goodness. Remember moving your head with that much stuff on it? It was like getting wazzled up everywhere you went. Amazing.
Well, I'm sorry to say that we're out of time, but thank you so much for being here to talk about Saltburn. Everyone, Saltburn. Thank you.